Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Reverse Sweep. We're back this week and we're back hot. Boys, how are we doing?
Doing great. Doing as good as I could be. What about you, Chris?
Doing good. Had Challenger Elite last week. We're going to continue playoffs this coming week. So, I mean, it's been eventful for me with the retirement of Scump and the Elite and just more shows, man. I've been very, very busy.
I love that. I love that. Now, I want to start this off because we do have a problem. And I'm going to give you guys a chance to guess what that problem is. Do you know what the significance of 53% is? Any guesses?
I'm going to guess that's the subscribe to view ratio.
That's the amount of people who watched last episode's Reverse Sweep and were not subscribed to the channel. Guys, we're not going to flood you with inboxes. You get one Reverse Sweep a week. Your inbox isn't going to be full. 53%. You might be on a different Google account. It's too low. It's too low. We're going to improve it this week. Make sure you hit the sub button. And let's get on with this. We had a crazy week that I don't think anybody was expecting. Scump retired this week. And it feels weird to even say that at this point in the season because I think we all thought we had one more year left. What was your guys' initial reactions when the news came out?
I mean, I was just kind of upset. I've never been on the best terms with Scump. I've said this multiple times on other shows and stuff. But, I mean, at the end of the day, the guy's a vet. The guy's one of my peers. And as a competitive player, I've always respected him and his accomplishments and his skill. And I was interested to see, how his final year would pan out. And even though he was still at the top of his game, I mean, you could tell in his matches he was performing really well. He decided to throw in the towel. And I mean, I was kind of surprised. I was kind of upset, man. I've always championed all the older players, even though I'm playing in challengers. We still got Clayster, even Zinni, as much as he's still kind of young. He's one of the old heads, and I was just so saddened by the prospect of, damn, man, we're getting older. People got lives. People are going to eventually start retiring, and we're just not going to see these guys anymore playing. It's pretty sad.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has happened, right, Chris? Like Seth is, kind of one of the few last dominoes of that kind of bucket of players that are retiring. Yeah, it was shocking to me to see that he called it quits mid-year. Obviously, I mean, I had thought this was going to be his last season, as he said. But I know when I really looked into it, like, I mean, we heard the rumors in the off season. He didn't really enjoy playing as much. He was debating it then. And so I think, this situation that we obviously covered last week with the roster drama, I think honestly that played a massive role. I think if they were able to get Pred and make that deal go through, I think Seth would have stayed. I think he would have stayed and finished out the year. And I think that would have been kind of like the honeymoon-esque type of thing he would need to stay. But I think it was clear he was just kind of to the point where he didn't enjoy playing as much anymore. Right, skill level was irrelevant. Like he was still playing very, very well, but he just didn't enjoy it as much. And that happens as you get older. It's happened to a lot of players. It happened to myself. There's some that obviously, Chris, I know used to have some left in the tank in terms of passion for competing, but I think his gas tank finally ran out of just. I'm not sure if I want to be doing this every day. I think I saw like a clip where he was just talking about like what his life's been like, not waking up and scrimming every day. And he's like, damn, like finally, because I mean, it is a grind and it's been a long time coming, right? It's been 13 years of doing that every day. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm happy for him that he was able to make that decision and probably for himself for the better. But it does suck, and I think it does suck for the scene as a whole. So it's never fun when you see some of those kind of old heads that's been around so long go out.
Now, I don't want to like dive. My bad.
No,
to cut you off, James. But I don't want to dive too much into his personal life. But I'm pretty sure he's getting married, very soon, probably this year. So I mean, like, dude, this guy doesn't want to like keep having to wake up and scrim and worry about competing. Like, this guy's trying to get married. He's trying to like, spend some time with his wife, go out on a honeymoon. He's not going to be able to do any of that stuff when he's still competing, right? It's like a full-time job. You got to be there for scrims. You got to be there for tournaments. Like, the guy is clearly at a point in his life where he's ready to move on. But man, dude, he looks happier than ever, man. He's been turning the stream on. He's been doing the watch parties. And I mean, obviously he's going to kill it. Like, the guy's getting more viewers in the CDL stream. Like, you know, he's going to be just fine.
The guy looks relaxed. You see him on the stream and he just looks relaxed. He looks like he's sitting back having a good time. It's a little
Probably
bit
would be two with 90,000 viewers though, James.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a little corny. It's a little bit of a corny question, but I think that, like, from my perspective, you guys offer kind of a unique experience. Do you remember, like, your first interaction with Scump? Whether it was playing him online or on LAN, and what was that like? Any first impressions?
I mean, dude, back in the day, we were all little shits, myself included, but dude, he was no different, man. The guy had a bit, dude. I remember when he was coming up in MW2, I played against him in something.
Name was Skylight.
And, dude, he was so cocky and like arrogant. I mean, I was the same. So obviously my pride and his pride definitely clashed. And I mean, I don't remember exactly what went down, but I mean, it definitely wasn't a pleasant one. But I mean, dude, I mean, as the future, showed, the guy was disgusting throughout the entirety of his career. But yeah, dude, Skylight, VWS, that whole organization was such a sham. But anyways, it was funny.
My first time meeting Seth was actually when I picked him up in the beginning of Black Ops 1. And I met him at the airport for the first time ever. It's Dallas 2011. It was me, my dad came to that event, Bobby came, Seth, and it was either Seth's mom or Bob's mom. It was one of the two. And we all met up, and Quantic had got us like a big SUV Uber, and like the whole way from the airport to the hotel, Seth was just a massive goofball. So that was like the first time ever meeting Seth, like just always cracking a joke and laughing. But yeah, I mean, that's crazy to think about, because that was literally 12 years ago. Like, that's a long ass time. Like, it's been a long time.
That's unreal. And do you guys have like I guess a favorite Scump memory? I personally, from a fan's perspective, I know it's not one of the craziest moments, but the first like LAN I ever went to was Anaheim in Black Ops 4. And first time going to one of the events, and the 1v1 with him and Celium for the reverse sweep against FaZe. That one will probably go down in my books, just because I was actually there and got to experience it. But I mean, there's been so many crazy moments that the guy's been a part of. I don't know if anything comes to mind for you boys. Pat, I assume it's winning together, but
yeah, I mean, I had a couple of those in 2011 where we won together, but a lot of my favorite memories were against Seth. So I might be a little biased since they were against him and beating him, and I've lost a few times, but yeah, I mean, I think going back to those 2011 events where me and him won our first LAN event together, and that was super awesome. That was super awesome to do.
Yeah, I'm probably in the same boat. I mean, I had a lot of moments back in the old BO2 days playing against Scump and the OpTic crew and beating them. But I mean, I can remember a moment that, I mean, looking back on it, it was sick. But I mean, it wasn't a pleasant moment at the time for me. I remember I used to call the Scorpion an online gun. Scump would use it all the time online. I'm like, oh my god, the Scorpion sucks on LAN. And then he pulled up to I think it was MLG Orlando, like it was an invitational, the Full Sail Invitational, I think. And I was on Unite at the time, and we played Slum's Hardpoint. And lo and behold, man pulls out the Scorpion, and he was just world starring. Like, he was world starring our entire team. There's a bunch of clips of that on YouTube, and yeah, dude, the guy was frying. I mean, we can't speak about his talent enough. That guy's, one of the best, if not like the best player, longevity wise and skill wise and stuff like that.
Yeah, so you guys are telling me that you actually like enjoyed beating OpTic from time to time? It was an enjoyance.
Hell yeah, bro. Me and Pat are both villains, bro. We were the villains. So like the green wall, we're always like the superheroes, the good guys, the Avengers. And like, bro, they always, obviously everyone wanted to see the green wall win. Yeah. So naturally, when at points in time, me and Pat were the best player, not best players, but best teams at the certain games.
Yeah.
Whenever we would beat them, like, dude, we used to get hella hate from all those guys.
One of my best turn-ons in my career is actually against Seth and Ghost. And I'm sure those watching can find that clip out there somewhere. But yeah, I would say that the favorite moments are definitely playing against them.
I love that. So, I mean, let's move on from it happened, but we also got our first experience of what the post-retirement Seth looked like with this watch parties. And obviously the viewership was incredible across the weekend. To be expected. It's the first weekend back. I have a weird take, though, and I want to hear your guys' thoughts on it.
Oh, I'm curious if we have the same take here, because I had a weird one, too, and I was going to bring it up. Go ahead.
I want to argue a little bit that Seth might be able to help the scene more now than when he was playing with these watch parties, because like experiencing the watch parties and the audience that he's going to start to bring in from when he does play Warzone and does play other games and gets a little more niche, plays with people like Tim the Tap Man, and then he has this unique perspective. And I guess it works well with this game because he did play it already at a professional level where he's able to give like insights on certain things. Like he was quizzing the chat today where they were like, oh, on Embassy B control, like what's the most important spot to hold on this chat? Like, well, what should we be holding right now?
Embassy B control does not exist.
Anyways, you get what I'm saying. And so he gives this unique perspective on the game, and maybe it can help bridge the gap between casual watchers and the CDL. Thoughts?
I definitely can see the point. I mean, dude, this guy's obviously going to pull in. He's going to pull in more viewers than at least the league match streams. I don't know how it's going to be at the majors. Probably will pull more at the majors, but at the end of the day, the metrics and stuff like that gets sent to sponsors from these watch parties are all the same. So it doesn't matter if people are watching him more than the CDL stream. It's all going to go to the same place. So I mean, this guy's going to pull in a ton of viewers and even some of the more casual fans and. It's almost like, to a degree, it's going to be like people are always watching an OpTic match, when they're watching his stream. Does that make sense? Because people are going to watch his stream regardless if OpTic is on or playing or not. So, I mean, I do see that he can definitely benefit the scene more if he is not playing anymore.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I definitely think it's possible, but I guess the concern would be there is like, not a concern, but do we know, or has he said, like, is this going to be a consistent thing that he's always going to do? Like, is this going to be something where he's live every weekend, every major, he's doing every watch party for every time the CDL is live? That's a big question for me, like, because you mentioned like him playing other games, and there's always the possibility that he falls in love with another game and wants to do that more and doesn't want to do the watch parties as much. I mean, obviously this is all new. It's all exciting. I'm sure he's been planning stuff like this for when he does retire, but I guess that's my question, is kind of what it looks like 6 months out, the off season, next year. That's the big kind of curious point for me.
I think honestly, if I think there's going to be a point where he's probably doing it at least for every OpTic game.
Yeah,
I don't see a world where he's not doing it for at least OpTic's matches, especially if OpTic is a pretty good team. Which, if we've seen them, recently, they look like a pretty good team. They look pretty rejuvenated in that sense. But I mean, even if he doesn't, I think nothing much is going to change. I mean, people are still. It's not like people were going to like come into the streams in waves when fucking Vegas and like Mutineers were playing. Mm-hmm. So at the very least, if he's there for OpTic games, or the majority of them, I don't think there's going to be any negatives. But I mean, we'll see. I don't see why he wouldn't.
Yeah.
Because Call of Duty is obviously where he came from, and granted, I think he can pull viewers like that on other games with time. I think, dude, if he's trying to just like have his streaming career take off for now, like, bro, he has it easy, right? He can just sit there and watch games, kind of like how like what Tom does, and just talk to chat, bro, and relax. Like, he doesn't need to do anything special. So we'll see. Also, there could be a way where the CDL starts kind of like incentivizing him to do it. I don't know if there could be a deal there that maybe already be in place that we might not know about, or one in the future. But I mean, if the CDL doesn't, to some degree, try to keep this guy invested in the Call of Duty League as much as possible, they are stupid.
Yeah. Well, so on that note, let's talk about the OpTic team and how they looked. We got a new OpTic team, new old / OpTic team. Dashy's back. Thoughts? Did it go better than expected?
Yes, better than expected. Sorry, I'm drinking the water.
No, you're good.
Go ahead,
I would
Pat.
say it went better than expected. But mainly that's because they just were a new bunch, right? But I think on top of being better than expected, Chris, there's always, and this happens with almost every team, is those honeymoon periods, right? When everything's going right? Seth retired, he's doing the watch party, everyone's hyped up for the team. There's a lot of like camaraderie, like you saw in Seth's retirement video. It was like, Dashy, you better not let me down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was kind of a it's kind of a perfect storm for them to all really rally behind someone like Seth retiring and all be at their best. But I would say, yeah, in terms of performance, it probably did go better than what some people were expecting. I think they meshed pretty well and they played at a pace I don't think they were playing at beforehand. But as always, like every team, like that only goes as far when you're able to get the kills that they're getting. And so to me, I think they look, this OpTic team was always going to be a top 6 team, right? At worst, they're never going to fall into those like bottom 6 bubble no matter what, just because of the pure talent they have on the roster. But my big question, and we haven't seen this yet, is like them up against not Seattle, Ultra. I know they beat Ultra, but Ultra, FaZe, and New York on LAN, and really see what this OpTic team is made of and how they look in that environment.
I mean, we can sit here and look at the qualifiers as much as as much as we want, but at the end of the day, bro, LAN is a completely different story. These guys are all very good LAN players. Obviously, they've won championships, world championships, et cetera, et cetera. So these guys obviously all know what they're doing. But at the end of the day, man, it's hard. It's always hard to point out who the best team in the game is and all that stuff because we won't know until the major. But at least right now, from what OpTic's been able to do, we've already seen them take down one of our said top 3 teams in Toronto. We'll see how they can do against, the likes of FaZe, New York, and obviously, when that major comes around. I'm interested to see how this team develops because, I mean, for the lack of practice that they've had, they've looked damn good, and they look a lot better in search, which was their huge weakness, with Scump on the roster and the team before, Huke. So if they can get these hard points rolling, and I think they will, because I mean, dude, look at the roster, look at the talent that they have. I mean, like, you're telling me that those guys can't win hard points. Yeah. I mean, they're going to be due for some in a couple series. If they keep their S&D gameplay up, I could see these guys being a real threat. I'm optimistic for sure, but at the end of the day, we're not going to know until the major when these guys have a lot more pressure on their shoulders to perform.
Yeah. Now, has anyone like publicly talked about some sort of like role change with Rambo? Because I think it's been pretty obvious that he has shifted a little bit in where he is, and he doesn't seem to be as involved during matches. Has there anything came out about that? Any thoughts on that in general?
I leaked it on the flank, but they've been scrimming in my team's TeamSpeak. Well, it's not my team's TeamSpeak, but it's Ender's TeamSpeak that they use, and we happen to scrim in there. And I saw that Rambo wasn't in their scrims. It's just been JP, and although I think Rambo is a great coach, or he could be a great coach, I've never had the experience with him. He's very tenured, very smart person. They obviously had differences on how they wanted to approach the game, and I think it's very smart of him to kind of like take a step back, let the players handle it. Cause I know JP, he's a smart guy, but he's more of an analyst. He's never played. So on the coaching aspect and stuff like that, and in-game leadership type of aspect, he's probably not going to have the same intangibles that, let's say, Rambo has, or even some of the players do. So I think OpTic took the right approach if he's not obviously going to be there full time anymore, in terms of let the players see what they can do on their own. Let them, take control of the team and stop feeling like they're kind of like controlled by Ray. And if they do well, great. And if they don't do well, then maybe Ray can step back in, or maybe they find somebody else that can fill those shoes. So, I mean, assuming he's not going to be at the major and he's not going to be their full-time coach anymore, I think this was a smart move to kind of let the players, test the waters and see what they can do.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of confused by this whole situation. One, because there's not been anything said about it, and so I don't know if there's like any bad blood, or if the players, it was a player's call or it was Ray's call. Another thing is, like, I saw a few things on Reddit where, like, you know how on Discord you can like see what somebody is doing, like their activity, if they're playing a game or something.
Yeah.
I guess somebody on Reddit was in like one of the Discords that Ray's also in, and like during an OpTic match, Ray was like in some random game on like at least his Discord activity feed, like someone creeped and found that. And so it is interesting, right? Because Ray's not only, or at least was not only the coach, but also the GM. And yeah, I just don't know what the landscape looks like. Maybe he took it as an opportunity of Seth's retiring. Maybe I can step down from coaching the active roster. We've kind of always heard that like Ray may not also agree on how all the players want to play the game, and stuff like that. Maybe it's an experiment, right? Maybe they're just testing. And so yeah, for me, I'm kind of confused by it all, and I'm really hoping that, you know, in the next OpTic, whatever the video series they do, if they give some information or something like that, because as of right now, it just looks like there's just a bad blood issue and Ray's not involved.
Do you think part of the reason? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's just a weird situation overall for me.
Do you think part of the reason that this may work better for them is kind of what we touched on last episode, in the sense that there is a weird respect thing between players and coaches kind of in this era, and having someone like an analyst like JP is a little different and might work better in some cases than a coach, because like he's just there delivering numbers, and then they're there to essentially figure it out and do with what they want with those numbers.
I would honestly argue that the type of players on this OpTic team are players that don't really want to be coached by an old style player. Whether that may be true or not, I'm not sure. I'm not in their scrims, but from playing with Huke, right, in BO4, like I could say I definitely got that vibe. Because I mean, most of these guys came up in like the cracked Call of Duty era of players, where like the BO4s, the IWs, where you're just playing with a ton of pace and you're not really playing with much strategy, especially in games like this. Maybe Modern Warfare 2 is a little bit better than Vanguard and maybe the first Modern Warfare, but yeah, maybe these players just don't really want to be coached. They're more just free flowing in how they approach the game. So maybe it is an advantage. I don't think I do think the people on this team think about Call of Duty a bit differently than Ray. Neither way is wrong, but it's definitely a different approach. And so yeah, I think maybe it may be an experiment where they're saying, okay, well, maybe if these guys do their own thing, will it work better for them?
No, I definitely agree with you, Pat. I think this game, it's just a lot of, I mean, Call of Duty in general, like, has gone way more like reaction based. It's not so like A, B, C, like, plan strategy. It's more like free flowing. And I think a lot of the player decisions are key. And dude, if you look at the team that they have, like, these guys are like players that have a lot of finesse. Like, they're a lot of like free flowing. They like to kind of just like, they go rogue. Like, they're those type of players. And if a player like, or if a coach like Ray is like trying to like get these guys to play with a lot of structure, I think to a degree it could confuse them to a degree where they're just like thinking, like, remember how I don't know if we had this conversation in the last reverse sweep, but I remember I was telling someone how if you go over mistakes too much, it starts to put a lot of doubt in your head because you start overthinking situations. It's more so like you want to reinforce all the positive stuffs that you do in a game and not so much the negatives, because the negatives, if you start, going over like, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do this, when it's time to execute a play, instead of you just going and doing the play, you're going over these situations in your head. Should I do it? Should I not? And it starts to confuse people. I'm not saying these guys aren't smart and they can't discern that for themselves, but like, you got to think it definitely does play an impact in terms of like the comfortability that some of these players can have, especially with such a roster as OpTic, because these guys just run. They play at such a fast pace. You got to let these guys make the decisions. You got to let these guys flow, and they'll correct their own mistakes. I think they're taking the right approach.
Yeah. I love that. Before we get on to kind of a hot topic in the last like couple hours, just another reminder, guys, if you're watching this live, we get a lot of live viewers during the premiere of this show. So this is kind of for the live viewers. If you're watching, hit the subscribe button. Just one more reminder. Anyways,
just a quick scroll up, right?
Just a quick flick, tap,
flick of the wrist.
Flick of the wrist, all with the episode. So Slasher just tweeted not too long ago in the last like hour or two. We're recording this on Sunday night. Just some direct complaints, whether it's just about the game in general, audio, red dots on the mini map. I have heard that there's like weird audio settings that help you hear the game like exceptionally better than like standard settings. And then obviously snaking. Like all of these things, like to some extent, we've had little cheesy things in games in the past. Is it like really amplified in this game? And I guess you can kind of talk about that, Chris. But what are your thoughts?
As a player, 100%, I agree. This game doesn't have a lot of skillful movement mechanics. It's just point and shoot. So players are going to take every single edge they can get to put them at an advantage. People are going to snake because obviously no one wants to get snaked that's accidentally. So the whole GA goes out the window. So people are going to just kind of like, and I'm in that boat. I would much rather know I'm going to get snaked than somebody accidentally do it, because it's kind of inevitable when you prone and stand up and like win a situation or a game because of it. I'm going to feel cheated, right? So that's at least my take on the snaking stuff. In terms of the audio settings, yes, there's this setting in the game. I'm going to leak it to some more people that if you guys are not familiar with it, if you go into the audio control panel in Windows and you go to your playback devices, you go to like your Astros or whatever the hell you use to like listen to game audio, you can turn this thing on called loudness equalization. And what it does is it clamps the like really big sound. So for example, gunshots, it clamps them down and it raises the lower frequency stuff like footsteps. So what it does is it makes it so you can sit there and crank your Astros like as loud as you want. And somehow shots are going to sound really quiet, but footsteps, dude, it's literally crazy. You can sound more people across the map. Try it for yourself if you've never done it. But whenever I gave it to my teammates and challengers for the first time and they had no idea it was a thing, like one of them it was funny. He was like, dude, it's like I'm pre-sound whoring people. I was like, what? It's like pre-sound whoring people. I was so confused. I'm like, dude, this should not be a thing. The game we've already known is the skill gap has slowly just gone out the window with map design, weapon design, movement mechanics being removed, and then on top of that, all the cheesy stuff. Like it's not been addressed. Snaking is still a thing. It's been a thing in every game. Dude, I don't know what they're doing.
My take on snaking, and this, I mean, here's my problem, Chris. I do agree with you. I think, getting accidentally snaked is annoying, but my problem is snaking has always been a thing. It's been a thing in every Call of Duty since the beginning. And I think the big problem for me, and I think this is kind of what Slasher's call out was, is that it's just accepted now that it's so common that people like think to do it. Like you're actively trying to snake in examples. We didn't, and this is just objectively facts. Like we didn't try to do that back in the day. Like I never was behind a heady and just thought to myself, I'm gonna snake. Like that's just not what players did. And it was so much less common. And I think now it's got to the point where it's just like, so widely accepted that everyone's kind of doing that as a gameplay strategy.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I hate from it, is that it's clearly abusive and it's just so many people have widely adopted just doing it, and everyone's just kind of accepted, okay, there's no fix, so I'm going to do it too, and you're going to do it, and we're just going to all do it. And that's kind of, that's the frustration that I read when I saw Slasher Street, because he was in Ghost, he came up in BO2 and Ghost. It just wasn't a thing back then to do it and like be proud of doing it. And I think that's the era we're in, where players are just like proud to do cheesy, abusive mechanics. And that's back in the day, bro, you did cheesy, abusive mechanics and like you were a loser. Like we didn't like you. Like that's how it was looked at. And now it's like we tip it. And so
bro, tippable form is what they call it. It's like, oh, nice form.
That's what I hate, is that we tip the cheesy, abusive mechanics, like the lay down on the stairs thing. Like good play. Like it's
you want to what else contributes to it though, Pat? It's like another reason why the skill gap is so low. It's the multipliers, right? No one wants to sit behind a piece of cover and have a guy come around the corner and just blow you away, because naturally, if you're behind a piece of cover, what's the only thing showing? Your upper chest and your head. And what are these guns good at doing? If you hit the upper chest and the head with multiple bullets, you fucking zap people.
And also the flinch is directly up. Like if you shoot somebody in their chest and then you get flinch, it's a guaranteed headshot. Like it's so dumb.
You can't just sit behind head glitches anymore because of this type of shit. If multipliers and stuff like that were removed, more people would probably just hold angles, because you can't just get blown away, by a guy coming around the corner and two-shotting you into the dome. But I mean, in general, like I think everyone, including Slasher, who's been a little bit more vocal about it, is just frustrated with the state of the game in Call of Duty because they continue to let these, mechanics and just things that no one wants changing into the game. Like, for example, the red dots. And this is just another thing that I guess we can touch on. Like, season 2 of this game, for the casual community and Warzone community and stuff like that, competitive community, it's been delayed. It's been now like 4 months since the game released, and a lot of these frustrations have not been fucking addressed. It's been 2-3 months now without content. We've had no new maps. The competitive community needs some maps, man. We have clear issues in our map pool. There's been no balance changes since season 1. There's so many things that Call of Duty has not addressed outside of like the balance. Like, they haven't even got to the content point. So at what point are we going to get some actual fixes to the issues that Modern Warfare has in the competitive community? Probably not ever. But I mean, everyone's just kind of frustrated with it, Slasher included.
Yeah. Now, honestly, I want to ask you guys, how different do you think this game's going to be year 2 from what it is right now?
I think it's gonna be the exact same, honestly. I genuinely don't feel like things are gonna change. Not for the better and not for the worse. I just think that they've, like, from a gameplay standpoint, they're obviously gonna push content out, but I don't think, like, I could be wrong, but personally I just don't see the dev side making major changes to how the game plays.
Yeah.
And so I think, to me at least, like, I kind of wish they would, even if it was for the worst, just so it wasn't as stale. But like, yeah, I don't see them changing major things like that. So year 2 is going to be interesting. I mean, that was always, that's the problem with the gamble on going a 2-year strategy in Call of Duty, is because we have 3 different devs, and like, one could make a good game and you could be like, yes, I got 2 years on a good game. And then you could get a bad game and be like, damn, I got 2 years on a bad game. And so it's a double-edged sword. I think, though, honestly, if they can just somehow produce maps that play well, especially in arena-style maps, 6v6, like traditional sizing, I think CDL can adapt and play 4v4, or not play 4v4, but play on those maps and it play well. But I don't see any major changes happening to the game, so I think we're pretty much going to see the same stuff.
Yeah, I don't see a world where they somehow add red dots and dead silence and up the time to kill.
They've been this stubborn so far.
Yeah.
or all of a sudden, bunny hop jumping is back, so maybe there's a little bit of extra added movement mechanics, or slide canceling somehow comes back. I don't see a world where that happens, as much as I would definitely like, for certain things to kind of come back, so that way we can actually have some skillful gameplay outside of just point and click sound horror. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's going to change much. I think we're just going to keep getting maps and stuff like that. And dude, imagine none of the maps are good and we just like keep the same map pool for 2 years. Holy.
Yeah, like you can't put any new ones in.
Yeah.
You're playing
just not good.
Just no embassy control B point yet.
No
Embassy.
And honestly, we might get embassy control if we're desperate enough. Probably not. That map was horrible.
To piggyback off that though, can you guys both have played for a long time, and Call of Duty is such a unique esport in the sense that a lot of people talk about like the adaptability from game to game every single year. You're playing a new game, a new title, the developers are switching. Can you guys touch a little bit on what it's been like to compete, I guess, in Call of Duty and have that game change year by year? And we see these players that are getting frustrated, but I mean, there is a little bit of justification behind it because you have like League of Legends and Valorant, CSGO, that very minimal changes on a regular basis.
Honestly, I'm kind of glad that we have had multiple games because, I mean, I think if we were stuck with one outside of like
the perfect one to go to,
maybe 2 titles ever in the creation of Call of Duty, the games would have been fucking miserable.
Yeah.
I also think that Call of Duty releasing every year is one of the reasons why it's stayed popular. I don't think from a casuals perspective, they've done enough as a franchise outside of, finally bringing in a BR that's been able to kind of retain players. I think the arena shooter type game is kind of just falling off. FPSs from like unless it's like a competitive built FPS, for example, like CS:GO or like Valorant, arcade shooters have kind of fallen off the bandwagon. Look at like Halo, for
Yeah.
example. Halo's sat there and tried to innovate multiple times and stuff like that, but it's failed to kind of attract new people. I think the thing that saved Call of Duty was a BR. So, as a competitor for this long, I think that's one of the reasons why Call of Duty succeed in the first place was the yearly releases. So I don't know. I'm kind of glad that we did that, and I didn't mind adapting to every game. I kind of found it fun, but ideally, from a competitive scenario, I would much rather have a stricter title that's actually good with added content. But I think Black Ops 2, right, Pat? You said it was the perfect one. I think that was made by accident. And for some reason,
Oh,
as much
totally,
as people say, yeah, dude, they should just remake BO2 and add new maps. I'm like, they haven't done it. They just keep trying to innovate things that don't need innovating and bringing in more useless shit. So I don't know.
I'm glad you brought that up though, Chris, because I mean, I agree with you. Like, I do think there was a fun aspect of each year having a new title to learn and perfect and things like that.
100%.
Clearly comes with its downsides of like, shit, we got a bad one this year. Like, and it kind of, hurts the momentum. But yeah, I think to your point on like the arena FPS market, definitely changing and getting a little stale. I mean, hey, I just stopped competing, and now I've moved over to work on one of those new FPS titles, and it gives me a lot of kind of not freedom, but like in terms of the development process, like really providing input on things that I think have went the wrong and should be reinstated or fixed and stuff like that. So that to me is kind of the new exciting part of like being in the arena FPS, and to your point, Chris, like kind of getting it out of that wanting arena FPS to be back to the dominance that it once was. So
Yeah, make arena FPS is great again.
yeah,
I love the inside, boys. I love it. Let's get into some of the matches. So we kind of did a long roundabout game, OpTic. Let's do some highlights. Capsidal filled in this weekend for LA Thieves. They've been struggling a little bit, so it was maybe not the worst thing in the world that they had a little bit of a different look. What'd you guys think of Cap coming in on LAT?
I think Cap played great. He showed up and did what he could. LA Thieves at the end of the day has a lot of talent on their roster, but they've been failing to put it together. But I mean, in the last match that they played, granted it was against London. He had a really good series. I'm assuming Kenny will be back for the major, but there's a possibility that he might not be back for the major. So we'll see if they continue to use Cap. But I think, I don't know, with this LA Thieves team, they need something. I don't know if they're just the slowest learners of all time, or these guys just need to step up their game. I mean, we saw glimpses of that in the London series, but at the end of the day, bro, they're playing London with like a new roster change again. Like, I don't know. These guys just don't look good on this game.
Yeah, I honestly think we were as accurate as it gets when we talked about this last time. I did hear Sam say that he just thinks they're like a shitty Major 1, Major 2 team. But because even go back to Vanguard and looking at their Major 2 record, they were like 1-5 or 0-5, whatever it was. But yeah, I don't know. I think Cap did play well. But even if Kenny is back and is back in form, I don't have faith in this team like coming into an event and like dominating at all. Like I don't know. This game just to me just doesn't kind of fit their style, and it's going to be interesting because they're probably, from what I heard, they're probably going to play with Cap for at least another weekend. But yeah, I mean they need a serious turnaround.
What's crazy, as much as I want to see the Thieves do better, because I got some people on there that I'm pretty good friends with, I think it's a good thing that they suck, just for the sake of, in the off season, after Modern Warfare first season is over, if these guys continue to have lackluster performances, they're going to add to that roster pool of players and teams that are looking for changes. And that's going to make rostermania a whole lot more exciting if these guys continue to suck. If these guys end up bringing it back, have another good run at a world championship, and look like the Thieves of last year, like, it's going to make rostermania a little bit less exciting. So at least from a person like outside of, having friends on there and wanting them to succeed, if these guys kind of suck as a team, like you got to think these guys get picked apart and make moves in the offseason, which could create, some excitement for the scene. So, I mean, we'll see. Time will tell. Time will tell with these guys, because these guys they were slow learners last year. We were ready to basically to give up on them, but I mean, there's not many more things they can do now to kind of like change their formula, right? They found it. They got to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. And before we move on, obviously, well wishes to Kenny. Hopefully you're doing all right, bud. And I one team we haven't talked about and we haven't really gotten a chance to touch on has been ROKKR. Kind of interesting, like lopsided performances here and there. What are your guys' overall thoughts on the ROKKR team, and kind of what do they need to do in these last couple weeks of the qualifier before heading to Boston?
This ROKKR team. I'm just not high on these guys. I didn't like the roster they put together in the offseason. I know there was a lot of mixed opinions on whether they'd be good or bad or whatever, but I personally just, and I've thought this for a while, is to me they didn't build a star team. They got basically a worse version of a good team, right? Toronto Ultra was a really good team the last few years, and I feel like when they got Cammy and got Bance, they just basically formed and brought along Afro, formed a version of what Toronto Ultra had, but are a little bit worse in like every mode and every way.
Pat, do you remember when we were going over, my bad to cut you off, Pat, but do you remember when we were going over like tier list of all the teams and we had Toronto Ultra at like A or S tier?
Yeah.
And then people were saying, yo, ROKKR, look at ROKKR. ROKKR's in a better spot than Toronto in terms of the tier list. And I was like,
Ultra got better, ROKKR got worse. Like, how would that be possible?
Dude, yeah, that's what I was saying. I'm like, dude, I'm in agreement with you, but you can continue, Pat.
What I'm pissed about from this ROKKR team is that like I hate to say this because I do like these guys on a personal level, but I feel like they just need a switch up in the coaching staff. Like I feel like they've had the same game plan every year. And to me, they've spent a lot of money every offseason. They're obviously invested into getting a winning team, but they've had piss poor results, especially on LAN. Like to me, I don't have faith.
What are Looney and Brian Saints telling them before every map one, bro?
I just mean like, well, no, I don't mean just those two guys, but just in general of like how they build rosters and like what their game plans are and stuff like that. Because yeah, to bring up their map ones, it's pathetic. They can, no matter what the roster is, their map one, they just can't win map ones, which makes absolutely no sense.
I think the major standout for me over the course of the last 2 years, with him being on Ultra and then now on ROKKR, I think it's just Cammy, man. I mean, everyone was so high on Cam, including myself, after his season in Cold War with Toronto Ultra, and then ever since that season, he's kind of just started to kind of slowly get worse and worse or more inconsistent. I don't know if that's the teams he's been on or something else, but he just does not look like the superstar player that we saw that year. I think that's like the biggest catalyst, because obviously if you're looking at the team from top to bottom, if Cammy was playing as good as he was in Cold War, hypothetically to that skill level, having him and Afro would be amazing. And then Attach and Vanguard, right?
Is their best player.
But yeah, that's the problem. It's like you get production out of Afro most of the time, and then Bance is like the other one that's been pretty damn consistent for their team. And outside of that, it's just like, bro, where are they? Where ROKKR's not just sitting there winning search and destroys anymore, and they're still not winning hard points. For me, ROKKR, outside of like the Fortress map pool, right, with search and destroy, control, and hard point, what are these guys good at? Maybe a CeeLo control? Like, I don't know what they're good at, because
even then there's Fugaze wins. Like, yeah. I don't know. This team is just complicated. Honestly, until they can just fix their game one, I don't know what to say about them, right? Like, if you just come out in every series and get smoked game one, you're not that great at S&D, so you might be just instantly down 0-2. Like, why are you only good in the tail end of a series? Like, why can you never come out hot? Like, I know they just 3-0'd FaZe, but I think that was a massive off day from FaZe, because what we saw the next day, they get smoked by LAG, and FaZe looked pretty good and beat MWII. So I don't know. This team makes no sense to me. I don't have a fix for them at the moment, because I don't think they can make roster changes in the current landscape.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, even then, I'm not sure who to get rid of, because to your point, Chris, like the stars aren't playing like the stars, and the bad player, or not the bad players, but the role players, we'll call it, is playing like the stars.
They have Fame on their
no
bench.
sense.
They have Fame on their bench, but I think Fame can run an AR. He's done it in other CODs, but currently he's a sub player for the ROKKR Academy team, and their sub players are looking like probably their best players right now. So they can't just go 1-for-1 and swap them over and try to get, create some different like dynamic in the team. So I mean, we'll see how these guys have developed, but I mean, if these guys have another stinker, in Major 2, I wonder how long these online wins are going to be able to kind of satisfy their needs before they decide to, we're hungry. We need to change. We need to, we need to start eating. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds for those guys.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this year and at the stage that we're in right now, I feel like it seems so hard to predict, apart from a couple teams, how like a big chunk of the league is going to do in Boston. And I feel like post Boston, would you guys say that there's going to be a pretty large amount of roster switches after that, or what are we thinking? Because
I hope so, James.
There has to be, right? We already knew Seattle wanted to, Pred wanted to leave. So like he obviously doesn't have his heart set on that team. They've been playing poorly. We know those guys are pretty inconsistent. They are good on LAN. I'll give them that. Their respawn's great, but that team wants to make a change. ROKKR isn't playing particularly well. Even like on the lower end, look at Mutineers. Like these guys obviously need change if they want to be competitive. They can't just sit there and be like, okay, we're going to be this, S&D team the whole time. Like they got people like Dave Patty on the roster. I'm not sure if he's going to ever get subbed in, but like there's a lot of good challenger players this year. And I'm not going to say that some of these guys are going to all of a sudden take Mutineers, for example, to a top fucking, team. But like, if they're trying to mix up some dynamic, there's some talent that they can pull from. And at least for me, it's not entirely a risk because once again, we're playing a 2-year game. So if ex-challenger players are pretty good this year, they'll probably be good next year. So if you can bring in some of that talent and develop them and give the roster a switch up that you're pretty confident in, why not do it? So listen, man, LAG did it. They brought in a whole ass academy roster. They look better than ever. I could see a world where some of the lower end teams start, making some sort of changes. And even on the higher end, like ROKKR in Seattle, for example, like these guys definitely aren't going to be happy with the way they're playing if they continue to do this right now. Like, it's just, what are you doing if you don't make changes? My
thing is, like, I'm tired of these teams who we like, everyone perceives them as like, you're already a bottom 6 team. You're in the bottom 6 currently. You're going to end the bottom 6 team. Like, why do they roll the dice? Like, why do they say, like, we're in a shit spot? Like, let's just have faith in these guys and see if they turn it around. Because
take some fucking risk
with the format and how fast the season goes. It's like, do you want to be in like crunch time where you got to be perfect the rest of the season when you finally do make a change? Or why not be proactive and try and get a team in and get some wins now? So yeah, I mean, I think a lot of teams did a very poor job this past off season, and I think now, I mean, I would have said it a month ago, but I think now is the time that if you're gonna make a change, you need to do it. Like, don't write it out and see if people can turn it around. Maybe they can, sure, but like, why take that risk? Like, because you're just gonna find yourself in the same situation where you're 7 through 12, crunch time. You got to be perfect. There's gonna be a bunch of tiebreakers, so you didn't get a lot of wins. I feel like people should just get ahead of that. LAG, obviously they had the best challenger team, but they swapped the challenger roster in. They came in, they haven't even lost a hard point. Yeah, they haven't played like every top team, but like they're just coming in and frying in scrims and they're doing well. Like, I feel like it's worth the risk, especially in where you can do these 10-day contracts or even sign shorter ones. The league isn't even that long. These league contracts are annualized, so it's really going to be based on from when they got signed to the end of the season that like the amount of pay is, and like you can get rid of players. Like, I feel like orgs just need to be more active, like, and figure out what works, because they gamble in the off season and then they roll with it for the majority of the season. I feel like that's just such a poor strategy.
People got to start taking risks, bro. Like, there's been a lot of risks that worked out, and some of them are kind of insane, and maybe people didn't expect them. But dude, Pred, challenger player, godlike. Sib, challenger player, godlike. Hydra, challenger player, godlike. Fucking who else? You got Kismet was in challengers for like 2-3 years. Godlike. Like these teams are not making smart decisions. Invest in some of these players. At worst, you look the same. But maybe in another year when these guys get some more time under their belt.
That's the thing. None of these teams can get worse. Like they can't get worse. Like when we're talking about like some of these rosters, like you literally can't get worse. If you're the Mutineers, if you're Vegas, if you're London, like hell, you're ROKKR. You can't get worse.
At the very worst, you stay the same. But maybe these guys get better after a year of playing. You don't know. But if you're going to continually recycle the same players and wonder why you suck and not make smart roster decisions, while all these other talented, hungry players are sitting in challengers, like you're never gonna get better. I'm not saying you're gonna go out there and find Pred, a BZ simp in challengers, but like at worst, you stay the same.
Yeah.
And at best, you take some risk and you make some damn improvements. Maybe you invest in some people, and all of a sudden, you find it, diamond in the rut. So like, who knows?
Now, I might be faded for this, but is there a weird negative to a team like ROKKR or Paris going on some sort of run at Boston and placing like second or third or and then sticking together because they're like, okay, well, we can just improve, and then that roster kind of just stays in that spot for maybe longer than it should have because they performed well on LAN.
Wait, that's the Seattle.
We've seen it before, and it's also Florida. It's also Florida. Yeah. Remember last year in Vanguard, Florida would like beat OpTic and then get like a top 6 at each event, but like, dude, they sucked. We all knew they sucked. Like, yeah, you had a couple like surprise, shocking upsets, but like, I say it all the time.
Flank every time and be like,
yeah. I say it all the time. Some of these teams, when they upset and get wins they shouldn't get, it's the worst thing that could have happened to them because it gives them this false sense of like, all right, we can keep rocking with what we got. And it's like, no, you can't.
Yeah,
like,
when they need to have
LAG,
that, like if you're
LAG
not first, you're
last
year.
Yeah. So
LAG last year won a major, and all of a sudden thought they were.
Yeah, it was the worst thing ever.
They had the secret sauce, bro.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Seattle. I mean, I've always thought about the Seattle. Their roster they have right now is just so wildly inconsistent. Yeah, they're going to go and get second like they did in Raleigh. Yeah. But now they're back. They haven't even won a match in the online qualifier. And I don't want to say this is like the Pred OpTic situation because this isn't new. Like this happened all last year too. They would literally go to an event, get third, and then come home, be shit in the qualifiers, go to the next major and get 12th. And it's just like, some of these rosters are just formed and they're wildly inconsistent. And yeah, like just take the risk. Go for the pack-a-punch. Like I feel like at this point in Call of Duty, when you're picking up a player who is probably better than someone you have, like just go for it.
Listen, sometimes you hit the mystery box and you hit the ray gun. Other times you hit the mystery box and you get this little pistol.
Yeah, but you might get the Wonder Waffle too. Like
the Wonder Waffle.
The Wonder Waffle.
Wonder Waffle. What was the thunder? What's the thunder? The thunder gun or something?
Yeah, the thunder gun.
Oh my god, man! Like, somebody's gonna hit the mystery box soon, right?
I mean, it would spice it up for sure. And I feel like a lot of the young talents that do come from challengers, I feel like the Call of Duty space is getting a little more open to it, to where like they kind of like love the little Cinderella stories when these players get pulled up, like Capsidal obviously Capsidal was in the league before, but he gets thrown in and all of a sudden everyone's kind of rooting for Cap to do well and getting him a spot, or whoever ends up finding their way into the league that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be difficult though, because like sometimes, like, bro, if you're Cap, you're getting put on a Thieves roster. It's not like you're getting put on like the worst roster in the league. You're getting put on a roster with world champions, so performing might not be as hard. But like the one thing that challenger or that some of these organizations or some of these like people, even like Redditors, man, they do is like, bro, you'll see a challenger player that's really good in challengers get put on like the worst team in the league. I'm like, bro, you think this man's Superman? Like he ain't saving them. Like, bro, usually these one-off changes are not going to change the entire dynamic of a team. And then all of a sudden, this challenger player's he's trying to, give it his all and do everything he can. But like, bro, there's no saving it. Hell, I'm not going to say I'm the best player, but I got put on like London for a month, and dude, they were in like the worst state possible, like mentally and like as a team, and it's impossible to play good.
Yeah,
you can't.
Yeah,
especially if you're trying to win. But yeah, different topic.
Anyways, we'll move on to our community segment here a little bit. I just want to say to everybody that commented, maybe some special guests. I read through a lot of them. We have maybe reached out to thrown a little dart in a couple places. So we hear you. We read all of them, and we're gonna see what we can make happen. Now, as for the questions, when I was reading through the comments, a lot of it was Dashy related because everyone thought Dashy was not going to find their way back onto a roster. But I did find two comments. One was just a statement and one was a question. And the statement had me laughing for at least like 5 minutes straight. But our boy Marcus just commented, "The older I get, the more I agree with Aches. ... Fuck. Period."
Hey, Marcus, listen, I'm glad you're finally understanding. I feel like as the Call of Duty community as a whole gets a little older, gets a little wiser, there's going to be a bunch of us on this train, but I can promise you this train's not going to stop rolling, Marcus. So I'm glad to have you aboard because never wrong, just sometimes early. So shout out to Marcus. I like that comment.
We love that. And then the other one, this was actually directed towards you, Pat. I haven't heard this story. I don't know how much you've really like dove into it and told the story, but with Scump retiring, what was your like process like when it came to making the decision to retire? And like, what was the nail in the coffin? Like, when did you know like this is my last year? I'm done. I'm going to move on from this. What was that kind of process like?
Yeah. So, I honestly, I think I kind of had a similar kind of path that Seth had in terms of like thinking about it before it actually happened. Cause the BO4 season was kind of like that for me in a way. Like, a lot of things just didn't go my way. Like, obviously we come off the world championship win with EG, we get moved to Envy, we team up with Huke. And that was kind of a big gamble and didn't know how that landscape would have looked. And I think as that roster fizzled out, right, we got a bunch of new guys. We got Pharaoh and JT, and we lost Brian and Silly. And then we had to pick up Gunless because Huke got transferred. Like, it was just a lot of drama within the roster that just got to the point where it was like, I mean, I think in 2019, I was like 25, 26. It was just like, damn, like I'm kind of getting tired of this, like just happening. And as the games change and are different and not necessarily the games that you like me personally, like I didn't enjoy BO4 as much and I didn't enjoy Modern Warfare. Obviously I got an opportunity on LAG to continue and make a roster, but it was at the last minute. It was kind of like a Hail Mary, like all 11 teams were signed. And so, yeah, I mean, when I got put in the situation though, where, I was no longer on that LAG team and we obviously weren't doing well and the LAG team wasn't performing. I tried at the very beginning of Cold War to like dabble in challengers. Like I took kind of like, I didn't take the whole year off, but like after I got released from LAG, it was just kind of like there was nothing for me to do. Mm-hmm. And then I was like, okay, in Cold War, I'm going to try out play challengers. I'll see what it's like. And for me, it was just like dealing with like the big age gap in players, like playing with like different 18-year-olds every week. And this is why I gave a lot of credit to like Krim and I think it was part of what Krim ended up saying is like he got tired of it too. Was just like there's like a maturity level that's just different where you realize that your teammates aren't necessarily your friends anymore. Not because you don't want to be friendly with them, but because when we came up back in the day, everyone was in a really similar age range and we were all kind of like your friends or your teammates really could be your friends. And I think it just got to the point where it was just very business oriented in a way, and it was hard to have the same camaraderie between guys when I'm meeting a new guy every weekend basically to play with. And so yeah, it was just kind of like one of those things where like life gets the best of you and you're just like, I'm ready for something different and something new. And obviously I put 15 years of my life into scrimming every day and competing, and so it was just something where it was just like I just don't want to do it anymore and I'm ready for something new. And I think Seth is finally hit that wall where he was just like, I just want something different.
Yeah, I love that. Did you know that when you exited away from competing that you wanted to get involved in like, whether it's podcast stuff like this in the flank, or did you be like, oh, I want to go down the developer route and get involved in some title? Like how did that process go?
Yeah, so it was interesting for me because when I retired, it was like peak COVID, right? Like, so I think it was a much different landscape. And I kind of took that time, where nothing was happening in the world, to kind of think about what I wanted. Consulting with Ubisoft kind of landed in my lap. It wasn't something that I like originally went out for or pursued. It was just kind of like great timing on both ends where it just appeared. And at the time I wasn't doing any podcasts. I mean, I was hopping on with Zuma or hopping on with whoever was doing a show and just being a guest every once in a while. But yeah, I mean, I think I really fell in love with working at Ubisoft on X Defiant. And that was kind of just like, it sparked it. It was kind of like a new fire for me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I really like what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm excited. I'm getting pro players, and past peers involved and getting them to see what we're working on and stuff like that. So I did really enjoy the development process and I like it a lot. And obviously I got the opportunity when Tommy asked and Ben couldn't do it anymore to be a part of the flank. And that kind of just sparked this new kind of side gig and passion of doing these podcasts. Obviously the reverse sweep came along not too long after. And I think it's just been it's been a fun balance for me. Obviously it's a lot. My weekends are a little tough right now, but yeah, I mean, it's something that I've definitely feel like I'm in a really good spot right now. And I'm glad, because I know it doesn't happen to every player, but I'm glad I was able to find something post career that I'm really excited about doing every day. So
yeah, I love it.
Feel very fortunate in that regard.
Beautiful. And I think that, like, obviously it's a win anytime that we can keep anybody who ends up retiring in the space like close to the scene in some way, involved in some type of capacity, because as we get all these new players, like obviously we want to keep the old talent and the old heads, if you will. I
want to note on that real quick. Because this, I mean, don't get me wrong, I know Seth is by far and away the most important, him and Nate Shot to the Call of Duty competitive space ever. But I do want to call out the CDL here, because it's honestly extremely disrespectful that they've done this. When I retired, nothing. When Krim retired, nothing. When Damon retired, nothing. Obviously Seth got, as he should, as every player should, got their moment in recognition where it was just like a big deal was made, a special tribute. There's been a ton of legendary Call of Duty players who put 10 plus years of their life into this space, into making this scene, this community, everything that it could be. And they were never given their flowers by the CDL. I feel like when the merge happened from CWL to CDL, when that transition happened, CDL really likes to act like the CWL era and before, like pre 2018, just 2019 never happened. And it's extremely disrespectful. So I don't care. For me personally, I'm past it. It didn't matter that much. But for players who are involved now, and moving forward, those guys that do end up retiring whenever it may be, the CDL better do a damn good job of giving everybody their flowers, because without these players being involved and putting as much effort and passion into it as they have the last however long, they deserve whatever amount of tribute they can get on a CDL broadcast, on social, on a 100%. YouTube video, whatever it is. So I did want to call that out, because it was extremely disrespectful that Krim, arguably, and in my opinion, the greatest Call of Duty player of all time in terms of accomplishments, didn't get his spotlight. And there's been many more. So something I definitely wanted to call out, so everybody's aware.
Yeah, no, I love that. As for the community section, I do think that wraps up that. We do have pick'ems. And again, Pat, thanks for sharing that piece. Next week, pick 3 matches. You guys can either go back and forth or go one at a time, either way. First one I picked out was Seattle Surge versus NYSL.
Oh, this isn't even close. New York. Not even close.
I like that you picked this one, James, because this to me is like, Seattle right now is 0-3 in these standings. Like, if they want to have any shred of dignity to say like, hey, we're not rolling over and just giving up, like, they need to come out with the fire in this series. Like, Pred and Sib have been doing their thing in the majority of their games, even though they've lost. But for me, it's a big moment for Mac and Lamar and Sib and Pred to really just like shine. And it's like, if they don't, then this team is going to Major 2 in Boston and just getting shit on. So I think it's
going to be hard though, Pat. They have to play against arguably the other best hardpoint team.
No, that's what I'm saying, Chris. I agree. I think NYSL is going to win this series, no question. But I wanted to call out that like, this is Seattle's moment. Yeah, this is Seattle's moment to be like, you need to show that you aren't just rolling over and dying, basically.
Yeah, like last chance for a little bit of confidence going into.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great to be against Chris. I think there's a double edge there with being MYSL. I feel like if you do good against MYSL, you're gonna get more confidence than doing it, good against ROKKR or whoever. So
100%.
So yeah, I think they desperately need to come out and turn some heads. But I got MYSL winning. I don't have faith in Seattle, but I was just saying on terms of what Seattle needs. I got no faith in them doing what I just said.
Devil's advocate. I love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Chris, you said NYSL easy. Okay, yeah, I'd probably say the same. I think just from what I've seen, they have seen a little checked out. And I think I'd be a little drunk not to say NYSL. On to the next match. I picked LAG versus FaZe. Obviously, LAG's been hot lately. FaZe has been also hot, but also shown a little bit of inconsistency. Thoughts?
I'm gonna go with my boys on LAG, man. I'm doing the Frenchies. But regardless, LAG at the Pro-Am took FaZe the last map, with their old fourth Diamond Con. Pat already said on the show he arguably thinks that Arcades is an upgrade to this team. Maybe that's going to be able to push them over the edge. But I do think this is going to be a good series. It's going to be, arguably one of the better hardpoint teams this split versus a team that is struggling in hardpoint. So I could see this going all the way. But I'm just going to give the edge to my boys on LAG because I got some homies over there. But this could go either way. This is a hard one to call for me.
I'm gonna go FaZe. And the reason is LAG has looked phenomenal in hardpoint so far, but they haven't been tested by a top dog. They played Florida, played ROKKR, forgot who they played yesterday. Chris, you know?
They played Seattle. No,
yesterday.
Thieves with
Thieves.
No,
Thieves was,
they beat they beat Thieves with their actual team.
Yeah, they beat Thieves. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah. So they played Thieves, Florida, and ROKKR. So I don't think they've been tested by a great hardpoint team. And so I like this one. I think these hardpoints are going to be a good matchup. FaZe has been inconsistent in their hardpoint, so I do think it's an opportunity for LAG to take advantage. But I have FaZe as my major two favorites. I think they're gonna really come to play in Boston.
That's fair.
And so I'm gonna go FaZe. I think if it goes game 5, I got FaZe for sure. But I think it could be an interesting game 5 if LAG is able to win some hard points. But I really want to see FaZe come out hot and win this 3-1 and shut down this LAG is the hardpoint titans.
What you're saying though, Pat, also is LAG is going to get tested this next day or week. They're going to play not only against FaZe, but they're going to play against Toronto. So we're going to see them once again. They're going to be playing against two of our top 3 teams in the game right now. So it's going to be a fun one for LAG. I'm interested to see how they do against the top dogs for sure.
Yeah, I think I want to see the Challengers boys do well too. So I'm going to go with LAG on that. And final match.
I know which one it is.
What do you think? What are the
OpTic versus FaZe?
Of course. We have to.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one. I'm actually really excited for this one. Chris, go ahead because you were going first in the other two.
I'm gonna side with the green wall. This time I think as much as FaZe look like a damn better team, and OpTic's already been tested once by Toronto. They ended up beating them. I think OpTic are, they're feeling good, man. They got a lot to prove. I think they're going to come out hot, and this is going to be a good series. Honestly, as much as I've, always been, called an OpTic hater, I want to see the team do good. I want to see them get back to form because when OpTic's doing good, it's good for the whole Call of Duty scene. And, I want to see these guys come out and fry, and it's going to be a good series, I think. But I got OpTic.
Yeah, listen, I'm riding FaZe for all the major 2. They're my major 2 champions. And so I do think this is going to be a really good series to watch. It'll be another good test for this new OpTic roster. But I think FaZe coming off a reverse sweep clutch to versus MYSL, arguably the best team right now. I think they're going to roll with this momentum. I think FaZe is going to look hot this next weekend going into Boston. And if they go 2-0 this next week, I'm really, really confident on that FaZe pick coming into Major 2 and them just, really making Major 2 this event win where they finally get over this hurdle of getting second. and just come out and look dominant. So I'm gonna go FaZe. I think they're gonna win it in 3-1. Might be a little scary if it goes game 5. OpTic's looking good so far in game 5s.
I'm going to throw a weird one out there and say that I think it's going to be whoever wins, like if only one of the teams win their first match of the weekend, it'll be whoever wins their first match. Probably both going to win. There's a better chance, I guess, that Texas beats Paris or Vegas. I'm going to do it every episode. But if they both win, I'm going to go with OpTic. And that'll be my pick 'em for the day. And before we head out, everybody, again, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Keep filling up the questions. I love being able to ask these two and dive into their Call of Duty brains. So if there's anything that you want asked, whether it's to Parasite or Aches, make sure you put them in the comments below. I'll be going through all of them and handpicking them out. Once again, gentlemen, it was a pleasure. Thank you guys for hanging out with us today. Happy Monday. I hope everybody has a great week. And yeah, we'll be back next week for some more Call of Duty before the Boston Major.